Close-Up is brought to you by the Kia Sorento R, redefining the power of Kia.
Jade's story certainly raises questions. It raises questions about the rights of parents when others are giving their child advice and the child's rights. We asked all involved in the story to appear: the police, the Rosa Trust, who Sif appointed as counsellor, the family Jade lived with when she left home, all refused, citing privacy. Joining me now is Alan Bell. He's the National Director of Child Alert, dedicated to protecting children from sexual exploitation, and Sarah Chatwin, an expert in family psychology. Sarah, I mean, you've got kids. Parents who are watching this tonight, what would have been their reaction?
Oh, they will feel incredibly vulnerable and disempowered and probably be wondering exactly what their rights are. This is a really scary story. Do
parents have rights?
Up until today, I thought they did, but now I'm questioning that. And certainly, in terms of 14-year-olds and children under 16, they certainly should have rights. I think they do exist, but I think we need to look at the law and look what's happening out there, because it's certainly, this case is certainly pushing the boundaries.
It's a huge, precious situation for any family. Effectively watching as the whole situation is getting out of control.
Absolutely. They must feel as though all power and all control of their child has been taken away, particularly by people with agenda, you know, people who want to exploit children.
Could have they done something differently? Could have they handled it differently?
Hindsight is such a beautiful thing, and it's so hard to look back and think, look, if we had perhaps kept the pathways of communication open more, if we had have done this or that. It's so difficult. Of course, there are ways of making things easier, but if a child has something in their mind to do, they'll do it.
But as was alluded to, Jill alluded to in the story, at 14, you know, teenagers can be, you know, they're in a rebellious stage or they want to do their own thing. It's a difficult stage, isn't it, to deal with for a parent in any case?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of literature out there that says, you know, the years of storm and stress. I don't necessarily believe this, but certainly there's exploration going on. Teenagers are growing. The parents' influence minimises. The peer group influence maximises at this point. So changes are happening, but this is quite unusual.
See, also, who can you turn to? But we think to the police.
Yes.
They spoke to Sif, who thought, right, we'll keep out, we'll try and deal with it by recommending a counsellor. If that isn't working, who can you go to?
Look, it's very difficult to know who you can go to, and this story will be quite frightening for people, because they'll think, look, the police, I thought they could have helped, SIFs could have helped, and they, you know, the doors were closing. But I think you've got to start by, you know, doing what this family seemed to do and getting the family involved, and then seek out professionals, perhaps in the private sector, that might be able to help you.
Well, they did seek out a professional. They didn't seem to get much help. Alan Bell, look, underage sex is still a crime, isn't it?
Yeah, it's black and white. It's quite clear in the law. It's in our Crimes Act. It's where we have obligations under the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Children for the same thing. It is a crime. And the fact that a girl might consent is not relevant at all.
Are the police caught in a situation where, as we heard, I mean, Jade told Jill Higgins, I believe I consented, I believe it would be unfair to be involved in a complaint. So she goes, I'm not taking part in this. Do the police have any other options?
Well, I think a crime was committed, and I'm concerned and puzzled as to why there wasn't a prosecution. I think it is black and white. This was older men having sex with an underage child.
But if, as in like Jade is saying, that she doesn't consider herself a victim, does that mean there is no crime?
Well, not at all. The fact that she's 14 makes it a crime for men to have sex with her, regardless of what her attitude at that time was.
I think statutory rape, there it's called in some jurisdictions.
Yeah, that's right.
In the UK, I believe the law is there that they don't need the victim to cooperate. The police will just will make the charges irrespective.
Well, I feel that the same ought to apply here, and I wouldn't give up on the police. You know, they come in for some criticism on this case, but they are the law enforcement. We find in our work, which is to do with child prostitution and pornography, that generally speaking, they are very robust and do make a good job. So I think on this occasion, maybe it didn't happen, but they are the law enforcement that we need to turn to.
Sarah, coming back to the parents, what can they do? What can you do if you're in a situation like this?
Well, obviously, in this situation, there were very few options available to these parents, but I think that a 14-year-old doesn't just turn 14 and turn into this kind of person. There will have been signs along the way. So keeping the pathways of communication open, talking to your child, not at them, encouraging your kids to bring their friends into the home so that you can suss out the social niche and know what's going on.
Yeah, but kids might go, I don't want to bring my kids home. I don't bring my mates back to meet mum and dad. I don't want them to have anything to do with it. I'm going to keep my life as a teenager as far removed as possible.
Well, I think then parents actually have to work out rules and regulations for their family, things that are acceptable to their family, and those have to be put in place very early on.
I'll tell you what was interesting in this case. We saw there where the parents get tipped off by the brother. They start looking at their daughter's phone and her messages. They search her room. Is that snooping or is it parenting?
Well, from what I can tell through my experience, some of that is fairly standard stuff. And if you are a parent and you have a very bad feeling about things and a bad vibe, I think that some of that does go on. And certainly in this case, it produced results. Things were found. I mean, nobody would advocate snooping but I think as a parent, when you have that feeling, you have to take measures to try and either substantiate what your feelings are or to sort it out.
Ellen, if parents think or suspect their child is being exploited, sexually exploited, what should they do?
They should seek professional help, and they should contact law enforcement. The problem here, Mark...
Who would you go to for professional help?
SIFs and the police. The first line of call is the police. And they do have specially trained, dedicated people in the force to deal with these sorts of issues. So, you know, I come across quite a lot of this, and my advice is always the same. Go to the police, report it, get the facts, because they'll need substantive evidence, but that's the only action, because they're the only people who can do something about it eventually.
Sarah, is there ever any time when it's right to overrule parental rights?
Look, I wouldn't have thought so, to be honest. I guess if a parent is doing a really bad job, and unfortunately in our country we have escalating child abuse statistics, and obviously in those cases, you know, you might find cause to move in. But in this particular case, and cases like this, where a child is being exploited and where a whole raft of literature is out there telling us that 14-year-olds cannot make these decisions that have far-reaching implications for their future, I mean, no, I think a parent has rights, and they have rights as architects of the family to say what goes on in that family.
Sarah Chapman, Alan Bell, we appreciate both of you coming in tonight. Now, look, we are following up on this story. Tomorrow night, what do young people know about their rights and their right to privacy?
I think your body is your body at any age. That's no one else's business but yours. And that includes your parents.
I do think that kids should have rights of their own.
When you reach a certain age, you want to be making decisions for yourself and not having decisions made for you by other people.
Some people think that young people aren't old enough or smart enough.
Parents should kind of realise that children aren't just children, they're people.